Gents, it's good to be together. Our first podcast.
It's good to be here.
Yes.
It's great to be here. I'm going to one-up you, Jamie.
Yeah, it's great.
Look, so this podcast is a concept that we've been talking about for a while, and it's good to finally see it coming to fruition. So the Aussie Expat, what is it? What is it about? The three of us are talking. We've been up here for almost 9-10 years now between us, and we've all worked together really closely over that time.
Yep.
We always talk about what's the best thing about our jobs and why do we love doing what we're doing, and it's the clients that we have, the stories that we get to hear, the strategies that our clients go down, how are they successful. The whole point of this podcast is to not just share our own journeys, but also the journeys of our clients as well. And hopefully be able to bring some knowledge to people that, it might help that are also on the same journey.
Agree. I think it's the clients that get me out of bed in the morning, not literally, but basically I need to get out of bed in the morning to look after the clients. So it's I'm definitely with you there too.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
So I guess as we go along, our goal is that obviously we will bring in different guests each week. We'll get to hear their story, really deep dive into not just what they do, but also about them. Sometimes the good, the bad, and the ugly, or lessons that they've learned along the way. For our first podcast, we're going to put Jamie in the hot seat and deep dive into him, which I'm very excited to hear.
Yeah,
Jamie,
exactly. You look like you're sweating over there, Jamie.
Yes.
It's getting hot in there.
It is. Singapore, it's always hot.
But I guess for some people that are listening, obviously they might not know all of us. They might only know one or two of us. So probably Tristan and I, it's probably good for us to give a 30-second, 1-minute intro on us and who we are and why we're even here in the first place.
Are you looking at me?
You can go first.
I have to go first. All right. Okay. So normally what I say to clients when I meet them is short and sweet. I'm an Australian tax accountant based in Singapore. And I specialize in expats. So that's the elevator pitch, and the broader piece is been up here a little over 9 years. I came up because of my lovely wife, got a posting up here, Julia, who's a lawyer and keeps me very honest. My lovely kids also keep me honest around Singapore as well, who you guys have definitely met them.
Yep.
Yes.
Tim's dog doesn't like them either. That's okay.
She doesn't like any kids.
Okay.
So it's not personal.
And look, I've been working in tax touch over 20 years now, so I really enjoy talking about tax. I enjoy tax planning, and I especially enjoy seeing the end result. So you see a client that's we've implemented a tax saving or a tax strategy, and you can see it through to the end. And they're comfortable to move on and do what they want to do and not worry about tax. So that's me.
You are the man around town here, Tristan, that's for sure. I think everyone needs to have a good tax accountant, especially when they're an expat. So
very kind, very kind.
I think it's the proactiveness as well, not reactive as well. I think that's the big thing that differentiates you from other accountants.
Never heard a bad word against you, Tristan. So.
Very kind.
That's why we love working with you.
That's it, 100%.
Okay, me. So I've been up in Singapore almost 10 years now. I'm an Australian mortgage broker. I started Aussie Expat Home Loans around 7.5 years ago. Before that, I was a banker for 12 years. It's been a very interesting journey for me in Singapore. But as I always say, Singapore's been a really great blessing and a really great opportunity for me, and to be able to lose my job but then build a business out of it and still be here 10 years later is something that I appreciate and have gratitude for every day. So I look forward to it.
It's a good one.
Yes.
I'm glad you took that step, Tim. I still remember, I think I was even in an AusCham event, possibly with Jamie, and I was like, who's that guy leaning up against the bar? And they're like, oh, he's the new mortgage broker in town. Like, you better get to know him.
Something I also just realized is all three of us were trailing spouses coming over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jamie.
Over to me.
Yes.
A quick elevator pitch, and then we can do a bit of a deep dive into my past, and we can unpick my the history behind it. But essentially, I'm a financial planner. I've been doing financial planning for 15 years, 5 years in Australia, 10 years in Singapore. And yeah, I suppose elevator pitch is I try and help clients make money in Singapore and make the most of their time here, and then help them with that smooth transition back to Australia financially. So again, as we know, Singapore is a great place to get ahead with the wealth accumulation and wealth building. But also for most of our clients, Australia is that place they want to go to at some point in the future, whether it's 2, 5, 10 years away, 20 years away. And it's kind of how do you help them with their finances to make that move back to Australia as well.
Yeah,
I think I've been privileged enough, Jamie, to see quite a few of your clients who've been my clients to make that move back to Australia.
Yeah.
So actually seen the advice through, which has been quite a privilege.
Yeah, it's quite good. Like I go back once or twice a year to see clients who are back in Australia, and you go back and you see the house that you've helped them build or them living comfortable life in retirement. It's actually quite satisfying from that side.
definitely. I mean, yeah, we have a lot of. I always call it the 2 to 4 year plans. Normally, when I see them, they come and say, "I want to go back, maybe in 2 to 4 years, to have a house to move into."
Well, I came here for 2 years as well, and then
so did I.
10 years later, it's a typical thing.
Literally.
Two turns into 10 very quickly.
Gets hard to leave.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I guess it'd be good to give us the background of you, right?
Yeah.
Where you grew up. And...
Yeah, so born on the Northern Beaches in Sydney, as you can probably tell for the blonde hair, blue eyes. But yeah, spent most of my time on the Northern Beaches. Didn't really leave the Northern Beaches, as most Northern Beaches people do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until kind of after university I did as many Australians do, took that gap year away from uni before joining the corporate life. And yeah, travelled around the world. So went to Africa for 2 months, went to Europe for about 6, and then 4 months in South America and Central America, which was amazing. Came back to Oz, still didn't want to grow up, essentially. Got a job on super yachts at that point in time. Did that for a couple more years until one of the owners of one of the super yachts said, instead of driving a boat, you should work to try and own a boat one time. So that resonated a lot with me. Fast forward a couple of months after that, and I got a job with Macquarie Bank, and I was with them for 5 years, and then that time kind of really flew by. Kind of did a lot of my, I suppose, learning and technical ability, and as people who worked at Macquarie know, they put you through the ringer a little bit as well. So we all put the hard word on banks sometimes, but to work and to learn in them, it was my training ground as well. Exactly, it's a great place.
Still would never go back, but yeah.
Exactly. Well, a lot of people like that.
But I learned a lot.
You learn your craft. You're learning on a daily basis. Again, the norm there was to get up and get to work by 7:30, and you're probably working till 7:30 as a minimum. So that kind of instilled that work ethic in me. I got to some point where I probably got tired of that rat race. And I think that combined with working, getting up, going to work in the dark, coming back in the dark, plus also being on the Northern Beaches where it is kind of a little bit insular, made me and my now wife want to leave, and we kind of moved to Singapore to experience those different cultures. From that
Why
side.
Singapore?
That's where my wife got her first job.
Normally a good reason.
Yeah, so we looked at UK as most. I think parts of London's probably half Australian, half UK people live there.
Yeah.
Hong Kong, Singapore, and then the US, New York specifically. So we were looking at all different areas, and like at that point in time, it seems silly saying this now, but I didn't want to go to Hong Kong because I didn't want to try and learn another language. But that's how insular I was looking at working overseas at that point in time. Yeah, very sheltered, sheltered and uneducated, essentially.
Yeah.
I can say that now because I've been overseas for 10 years, but I think, very fortunate to be in Singapore, and Singapore to be that place, because we didn't really know what it would be living like in London or Hong Kong, New York, and Singapore. Obviously, coming from a financial perspective, Hong Kong and Singapore stood out to me a little bit more on the kind of income tax and the capital gains tax side of things.
Definitely.
Of course.
And I'm a numbers man through and through, unfortunately.
Yes. Not a bad thing, Jamie.
Exactly. So then I followed my wife up here, and then essentially started work almost straight away. It was a little bit hard to find work up here. I was thinking coming from a institution like Macquarie Bank would be relatively easy and transferable, the skills, but as we'll probably touch on a little bit, Australia can be very insulated, and Singapore is so global. So Australia is part of the global investment sphere essentially is so small, and there's so much more to learn that I've found. Me coming out of Macquarie thinking, I know everything there is about investment, so that was a steep learning curve coming overseas.
I think it's one of those things like Australia. You don't realize how insular it can be until you get out. But it's also one of the joys of being here is you just have so many. From a work perspective and a financial perspective, you have a worldview here, which is you don't actually get that in a lot of other places as well. Right? It's really here. Hong Kong are probably the biggest ones in London, I think.
Dubai now, Middle East is starting to be a bit like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What was the first job you had when you moved here?
First, I went back and forth with Macquarie. They've got an office here.
Okay.
They went through the enforceable undertaking back in Oz, so they pulled out relatively quickly and focused on their home offices more importantly. And then I got a job with a company called AM Advisory. So I probably sent out 150 different applications to different things, and for those who are trailing spouses or people who don't have,
I think all three of us had to do that. It's I still learned from my early days. I used to. You realize very quickly when you first get here, especially as a trailing expat spouse, that there is no easy way sometimes to find that first job. So I used to go onto LinkedIn every morning, and I would find at least 5 Aussie expats that worked in banking or finance, and I would message them and say, "Hey, I want to." I want to meet you, just trying to learn my way around.
That's literally the only way I got this job. Was I messaged a guy on LinkedIn and said, I'm interested in this role. He met me for coffee, and the only reason he did that because he got $1,000 to refer me, and he didn't know me for a bar of soap. So it's just the way the industry works. Unfortunately, it's like not what you know is who you know in some circumstances, but it also proves that if you want to have a job and you have to think outside the box, you have to go out there and do these types of things. It kind of shows that skill set as well.
No, agree. Exactly the same experience as you, Jamie, and also Tim. I was exactly 50 applications that I sent. I got one call back, and the salary expectation was like half of what I was happy to accept. I was like, wow, what am I doing wrong? And it was a LinkedIn message, just trying to work out who does tax in Singapore, and the one firm that did tax. I sent them a message and got a call back when my daughter had just vomited all over me. I remember it quite well, actually. I was looking after the kids by myself. The wife was out on a run or something, and my daughter, who was 2 at that stage, just vomited all over me. And it was
take that as a sign.
Yeah, take it as a sign. Yeah. And I just asked the guy, I said, can I call you back in 5 minutes? Just let me just deal with this, and I'll be back. But I remember it was a dark time, but I got a job, which is amazing. But
it's good.
Yeah. That first one, it's always the first one when you get here that once you've got it, it kind of just starts to open a lot more doors. You learn a lot more about the work, what's the word, like the work life.
Work life. I think it's like you get used to your own networks back in Australia, and you built them up over years, like decades. Like, because again, I was from Sydney, so my network, whether it be friends, family, or even career-wise, was all under the same umbrella. Move to another country, and you've got to basically reset that. So you expect it to be very similar to when you are in Australia, but that network doesn't transfer with you, essentially.
No, but I think also the thing I really appreciate here is that you can meet other, even look at the three of us, right? Like we've built this relationship over time, and we like working together because everyone's kind of in the same boat here when you first move over, right? Everyone's very understanding of what it means to walk in and have to adjust to Singapore life. And,
exactly. We expat friends become your expat family, essentially. There's obviously those Christmases that you spend together, special occasions you spend together. Orphans Christmas, exactly, and it's just those things, like everyone's in the same boat. We miss friends, everyone misses friends and family from back home. Until that time, we've been together for 10 years, we've been up here, so that almost becomes, this is almost your neutral position is Singapore rather than back in Australia.
Agree. It's I now have to be careful about talking too much about Singapore when I'm back home.
No one cares.
No one cares. Exactly. So I keep my Singapore stories for when I'm talking to you gentlemen.
That's true. That is true.
How did you find, I guess, because you and Sil moved up here as a couple, right? And now you got kids, a family. It's all kind of changed from one very different life to another.
It does. I quite being a couple, obviously being with a family now is very different compared to, and I think that is for most people. I kind of cut it up because our eldest was born at the start of COVID. So it's like pre-COVID, COVID, and then post-COVID. So there was that little bit of transition from that side. And I think Singapore is a fantastic place. A double income, no kids. I think the first 2 years, I don't even remember that much of it because we're traveling a lot, obviously spending basically everything that we earned at that point in time.
Easy to do.
Very easy to do. And it's one of those things where you come from Australia and like you can be on a ferry and you're in another country. You can drive to another country. You can be an hour on a plane. You can be in 5 or 6 different other countries. So like you don't have that flexibility coming from Sydney. Probably New Zealand's probably the closest 3 hours away. So it was kind of deer in headlights. Let's do as much travel as possible. And so that 4 year period, 5 year period of kind of wanted to be successful in our careers, growing our careers, but then also wanting to enjoy life as well. So it was quite enjoyable, but it was also quite challenging because both of us we still are very career driven and motivated people. So we want to continue to grow in our careers. So it was working hard and playing hard during that period. I think during COVID, it doesn't matter where you were in the world, it was quite difficult. We had our son was born in late Feb. Things closed down in like March, April. That was like being first-time parents, being locked up in a room and having Dr. Google there to look at. Like we did a lot of our knowledge came from online, which is a good or bad thing. But it was very isolating in a sense because you didn't have the family around, you didn't have friends, and like we did have a small nucleus of people who had kids here, but also it was a little bit challenging because of like you couldn't see them. Obviously there was restrictions in Melbourne, probably the worst in Australia, and then Sydney and things like that. You couldn't go to someone else's house. Me and Sil couldn't sit at the same restaurant with our son because it had to be 2 people. So like there was things like that was quite challenging from that part. And then post COVID with the kids, I think it's I suppose, Tristan, you would know this probably more than me. Your kids are a little bit older, but Monday to Friday is all about work. And then you get to the weekend and it's kids' birthdays, it's kids' sport. I think that's universal. Doesn't matter if you're in Singapore or in Australia. That's kind of where you are from that side of things.
Maybe to flip it to, you talked about the first 5 years and kind of spending everything you earn here and kind of living the life. Putting on your financial planner hat now. What, I guess when it's very, do not always do what I say, or sorry,
do as I say, not as I do.
I guess, is this more like what would the older Jamie say to the younger
exactly.
Jamie?
Yes, probably a good way to phrase it.
Exactly. Again, there was some really good experiences, life journeys and things like that. I think one of the things that me, my wife, we've done relatively well is balance. We both work really hard, I think, but also we enjoy that. But it's also, you can also have that enjoyment, but even if it's putting away a little bit at a time, then do that. I think starting early is the best thing, I would say, whether it's a small amount or a large amount, doesn't matter as long as you start putting things away. Singapore, as you guys know, is a black hole. The more you earn, the more you spend. So it's just about having that discipline and doing that at a young age. Like I was fortunate enough to buy a property back in Oz, 15, 16 years ago now. So one of the things that taught me is getting into something early does have long-term rewards, whether it's property or shares or any kind of investment. Just have another bucket or another 2 buckets working hard for you on the side, and then you can obviously use your income to top those buckets up or enjoy the balance of traveling as well.
I see it all the time in property. Everyone's trying to time the market. Everyone's trying to find that little dip or the best time to get in, and before you know it, market's gone up 20%. In a year, right? Look at Brisbane and Perth the last kind of 12 months. It's no one would have ever thought, but the bus it's gone.
Exactly.
Right
So. We have a thing where it's a time in the market, not trying to time the market. A good example was Trump recently. Obviously, the market's been going up and down, the share market anyway. From that point of view, it was down 4% one day, 5% the next day, and it was kind of sideways for a little bit. And then he announced there was a 90-day pause, and then the market went up 11%. So like if you got out of the market, you might have missed out on that. But obviously there's different things you can do to take advantage of that. And again, it's about trying to educate clients. One of my biggest things is that inertia. You speak to someone, and then you put a plan in place, then they're like, oh, I'm going on traveling, or I'm going on a business holiday, and then like 3 months goes by, meet with them again, or we'll do it again 6 months. And like I've spoken to people 3 or 4 years after I've first spoken to them, they come back and I'm like, what's changed? Like nothing, just life got in the way, but they're in the same place financially, so they haven't necessarily got ahead. But if they did a small investment or refinanced their mortgage and bought more equity, or use an equity within their loans to buy another property, things like that. I suppose we'll deep dive into some of those strategies later, but like that's one of my biggest regrets, is not probably being a little bit too conservative, because I've kind of get brushed with negative talk or like worry because I've got other people's worry. Yeah, exactly. If I use the equity of my first property to buy another one, then buy another one, it might be a different story. Or again, rather than managing other people's portfolios on the investment side, have a look at mine when things go bad, like when the market comes off, and rebalance it, so that I get some of that uplift. Because I think, one of those sayings is like, if you look at a landscaper's backyard, that's probably not a good indication of their work, essentially.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think I want to get into more of the client strategies and stuff, but I guess the last part on career is how, I mean, compared to when you first came here to now, what's the thing that, like, I guess, why do you still enjoy what you're doing?
Yeah, I think I'm still learning. Like, you come across a new client, they've got a new situation. I do like solving problems, or issues, or kind of take care of opportunities type thing. So each client's different. I think I've learned a lot over that time of 10 years, and speaking with more clients with, I suppose, more higher net worth, the issues become more complex. So you're talking about different structures, you're talking about different rules, and the rules change all the time. Like, especially if you're looking at Australian rules. We just got through the election, which was quite promising. It's still got the same party in government, so hopefully there's not too many changes, but there could be, because they've had such a landslide win that they go, okay, well, now's our time to shine. Let's make an impact. So again, you don't know what's going to be ahead of you, so it's kind of having that continual learning mindset, because things do change.
And I think also just realizing what you can control and what you can't control as well, right? I mean, I never want to get political on this podcast. So I think it's just a losing game for anyone. But you can't control what these outcomes are, but you can plan. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and it doesn't matter what party that might change it, but any kind of legislative change is a risk, right? So whether it's Liberal, Labor, or whoever, doesn't matter. You just, again, no one knew that Trump was going to be putting these tariffs in on Liberation Day, and then also no one knew, apart from 4 hours before he said now's a good time to invest, that he's going to do the 90-day hold. So it's like you just have to know, you just have to play what's in front of you, and then make changes and adapt if there is changes.
Very easy to panic when you see your money just disappear on a screen.
But
it's important to remember, I think, why you've invested sometimes, and realize it's a long term.
Well, the hardest thing is with shares is probably a positive and a negative. One thing is they're valued on a daily basis, so you've got liquidity. But the other negative is that they're valued on a daily basis. So you can see them all the time, whereas property, it's just a linear curve. Obviously, there's ups and downs, but a sales cycle of a property would normally be like 5 years or 10 years or something like that. So you go from A to B rather than a daily. I
had to learn a while ago. I never check my account. It's like, if I don't need that money, if I'm not going to use it for anything soon, I just let it do its thing.
Well, it's hard to do. It's very hard to do. And like, especially when the headlines, Trump's got 50 headlines a day at the moment. So it's difficult not to see it.
Yeah. I guess on the work side, my first question would be, when's the best time to get advice as you're an expat, right? Because obviously when you first moved here, you're adjusting to things. It's, sometimes you don't know how long you're going to be here for as well. Of course, the best time to get advice is on the first day, but in terms of like, when should be the latest time that someone should start?
Well, I think it's almost like when's the best time to invest in property, as they say. It was like 20 years ago, or tomorrow. So that could be the same thing for advice, because you could get advice before you come to Singapore or come overseas, and that will help you with a smoother like departure from Australia. I think the main thing is, and I'm a culprit of this as well, is try not to delay it, because by delaying it by 1, 2, 3 years, you're missing out on that 3 years worth of compounding down the track, and it's also 3 years worth of learning. So when you're investing, or when you're kind of looking at that planning, you do make mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes as well. So I think in terms of getting advice is tomorrow or even today, give us a call today. No, but I think there are key parts, and I think moving back to Australia is a key part, or moving on from the jurisdiction that you're in, because depending on if you're going back to Australia or other jurisdiction, there are different things that you can do from that side. Again, I work with both of you quite a lot on similar clients, and I think it's making the most of assets offshore and also assets onshore. So again, probably 90% of clients that we deal with have got at least one property, maybe multiple properties. So it's like, okay, is that property working hard for you? And if not, what can you do from a tax, wealth, mortgage cost perspective to kind of maximize that asset?
I mean, repatriation planning itself is probably the most important thing for a lot of people, because the amount of clients that have called me, they're leaving, in a month or two. They don't realize there's, especially any client that has like employee shares that have invested, and like they can get hit with big tax bills. They haven't done any planning around, this. We'll get into a whole tax podcast with you, Tristan, because there's a lot there, but there's a lot of things
got a lot to talk about.
There's a lot of things to think about, and they don't know about it until they get a big bill, or a year later that they be back and realize, I've got to pay all this money for something I never knew.
I think that's one of
sold something I didn't realize I had to calculate it this way.
I think that's one of the things that I've learned is people in Singapore are very smart, and they've got very like significant jobs, but they can be very smart and good at what they do. So they could also have their blinkers on about everything else that's around them. So I'll deal with clients who work in banks, or they've got very smart financial sense, but they might not know about all these different things about, okay, what's the tax rules on this or tax rules on that, or even like different structures that you've got up here. And like, again, I've been working with both of you guys for a while, but I message one of you at least once a week or twice a week, or just to ask about, okay, I've got a client, this is their situation, how does that work from a tax perspective, how does it work from a mortgage perspective? So I think understanding that, and as soon as you can know that your knowledge base and the width of your knowledge, and obviously asking questions if you need to ask questions, because the worst thing is you can assume, and then you get to that period where you go back to WAS and you get lumped with a big bill or something like that. It's difficult. I think
it's probably even the laziness that we don't pay capital gains tax up here, and we don't pay income tax on investments. People just get, and you can defer your income tax as well to a nice, interest-free gyro payment that a lot of people just forget on the catch up. So
No, and I think for any of my clients that are moving back home, I always say 1 year before minimum, you need to start really thinking about a lot of this stuff, because exactly like you talked about, there's the investment side of it. There's things around property that they need to be thinking about when they go back. It's understanding if and when they sell things, when they declare they're a resident. Like I said, there's so many variables. So minimum 1 year before you go back.
We'll do a podcast on just that repatriation.
100%.
Because people are worried about the number. We always put 200,000 in our modelling. Which sounds like a silly number, but there's tax they've got to pay. Sometimes that could just be the 200,000 there, but most of the time clients want to buy 2 cars because transport in Singapore is very cheap and efficient. Whereas in Australia, it's so spread out. You need 2 cars for a family type thing. So just little things like that people get used to in Singapore that they're not used to back in Oz.
Definitely, especially the longer you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Thought of having to drive somewhere again is it's been a while.
I miss driving. I actually enjoy it. We got back from the Middle East and we hired a car, and it actually feels very liberating to just be able to hop in a car and away you go type thing. So
the Australian road trip.
Yeah,
one of the things I miss the most, honestly.
I don't miss those days too much. Eating spaghetti cans out of the back of your car and things like that. But hey,
I went back to Melbourne it would have been like 9 months ago now, for one of my cousin's birthdays, and we had to go out. It's like way past Frankston. I think it was like an hour and a half drive, and my friend's like, I'm really sorry that we have to drive so far. I'm like, actually, it's kind of fun. I haven't been in a car for this long. You
do 3 laps around Singapore at that time. That's true.
I guess from a personal perspective, I mean, we talked about why you enjoy being here, but what keeps you staying here even longer?
I think the family side, like, it is very it's very comfortable. It's very easy to live here. It's very clean. It's very safe. The education system's fantastic for the two boys that I've got.
How old are they?
5 and 3, so I might have missed that earlier. But so they're 5 and 3, two boys, got an abundance of energy.
Chaos.
Chaos.
Yes.
Yeah, love-hate relationship they've got. But yeah, some days it's amazing. It's very cute. And 2 minutes later, it could be wrestling on the floor. And yeah, we've got a thing in our household: no heads and no kicking. So that's what it's come to. But yeah, anyone with 2 boys probably can summarise with that. But the family piece I think is important. Obviously, for me, the wealth accumulation side of things, whether it's anecdotal or not. 1 year in Singapore is worth like 3 or 4 back home in terms of savings ability.
Yep. Especially now.
Yeah.
Especially what's happened with inflation in the last 2 years.
Exactly. So I think that, to me, being able to put my family and get ahead is kind of very important from that side of things. There will be a point in time where I do want to go back to Oz. Again, it just depends on those key different benchmarks, whether it's when eldest goes to high school, youngest goes to school. There's different times, but I do want
school fees to be $100,000 a year by that.
Exactly.
The rate they're going.
But exactly. But they're expensive in Australia as well if you're looking for similar education. So like there's pros and cons of both. But I just think I had a fantastic upbringing where I grew up, and I want my boys to be able to have that as well. And then there's also that core nucleus of friends that you have that you go to high school with, right? So I want them to be able to have that core nucleus. They've got great friends here, and it's very international. Like I think we could go to 30 countries in the world and have some friends that we could stay with if we wanted to, just because Singapore is so international. But I also think them growing up with their cousins, my brother's got some kids back home, and also having that similar upbringing would be the biggest driver back home. But back to your question, why am I here? Family, it's safety, also I suppose from a financial perspective, being able to put some money away.
Safety is the biggest thing I hear from clients.
It's
almost the number one thing. Now.
It's all, in a sense, it's almost too safe.
Yeah,
which is a silly thing to say. Like,
I understand what you mean.
Yeah, you don't want your kids to get ruffled up or anything like that, but they just need that little bit of street smartness. And I think at some point there'll be a tipping point where they need to have some learning curves on that street smartness.
I think it affects us adults as well, in the sense that I had a boss that you may have had the same boss that every time he went offshore, he'd always get his phone stolen because he'd just leave it on the table and someone would come back and swipe it. We do get quite
complacent.
Quite
is probably the word.
It is. It's true. It's true. Yeah. You see, like, there's a thing in Singapore, for those who aren't in Singapore, where you'd show up a table with normally a napkin, but you've seen it with laptops, you see it with phones, and you basically hold a table and then you go get your food, then come back.
Cards for buildings.
Exactly. And it's just,
I try and explain that to some of my friends back home, and they're just like, what?
Doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. So it's very easy to become complacent to
yes.
that.
Maybe it'd be good to know what would you say has been your most challenging period?
It changed. I think the challenges do change. Like for me, the initial learning curve was, there's a universe outside Australia. So learning about all the different investments, the global investments, how that works. The currency, I think, was a big piece. Again, you could make 15% on an investment, but if the currency goes the other way, then you're back at neutral. So that becomes a bigger play, and I suppose we can talk about that because I suppose Australian dollar resonates a lot with both of or everything that we do with our clients. So I think the start is kind of learning more about the international space. At the moment, it's probably the challenge that I'm facing is kind of getting the clients and the sophistication of their knowledge and their investments, and being able to kind of add value to them and help them on their kind of very complex problem-solving journey that I've been on with them. I think it's probably different parts to different pieces from a learning perspective.
I guess because in your job, right, you would also see a lot of clients that have gone through a lot of ups and downs as well. If you could think about like what's the biggest lesson or the biggest takeaway from some of those client journeys that you see, what would that be?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons that I've had on that is staying true to what I believe in. Like you can get brought into all this hype. I think I'm thinking very quickly on the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin piece, because that comes into my life and goes out of my life depending on what the price of the Bitcoin is. So 3-4 years ago, when Bitcoin was booming, all my investments returns weren't anywhere near good enough because people are getting 50, 60, 70, 100%, 1000% return on Bitcoins. And they're like, oh, you're getting 10% or something like this. So it just makes you look inferior. And it's like, I was like to the investment team, hey, can we do something in cryptocurrency? They're like, no, we don't want to touch it. And then cryptocurrency obviously fell. It's come back up again. It's one of those things that goes up and down. But it made me realize that stay true to what you believe in. For me, it's diversification, whether that's diversification in shares, property. I'm probably one of the only advisors that look at property as I recommend. I don't necessarily recommend it to clients, but I think it's a good asset class for clients to have, especially with legislation in Australia, but also diversification into shares and things like that as well. So my biggest learning would be probably, stay true to what I believe in. And most of the time that's about great outcomes for clients and what works for them, not works for my back dollar, essentially.
I think the other thing I always see is there's, exactly like we said, we were coming here for the first 2 years, right? So the first 2 years, there's so many people that don't have any real plan. They're just literally here to have the best time of their life, which, to be honest, I don't think is necessarily always a bad thing. Probably depends on your stage of life as well. Best time of your life at 28 versus maybe 55 is a bit different.
Unless you're going through a midlife crisis, which could be fun.
Who knows as well. But I think especially if you know you're going to end up being away longer term, actually having a plan for that is probably the biggest lesson, or maybe the biggest mistake, but also the biggest thing that people can just be aware of that can really impact them.
I think having a plan, again, as you say, people come for 2 years. Clients could get complacent. People earn some good money in Singapore and they just think, okay, well, that I earn good money, therefore I'm going to be ahead in life. At some point in time, that tap is going to get turned off or turned down, and they won't be earning that much money whether they go to another jurisdiction or back to Australia. So it is kind of educating clients on that and making sure they do put money away for a rainy day.
Yeah. So last question. If you had a brand new expat in front of you, what would be maybe the top 2-3 tips that you would, or top 2 to 3 things?
Top 2 to 3 things. I think one of them would be ask questions where you assume things potentially, or where it's outside your special kind of knowledge base. That will be a big thing. Again, I speak to you guys on a regular basis just because I don't know your areas as well as I know mine, and that's not even talking about any other parts of kind of expat life. There is some good expat group chats and things like that where it's not necessarily financial, but obviously learning about hospital systems and things like that, which you can pick up things. So ask questions and kind of increase your network from that side of things. Another one I think would be make a start. Obviously compounding, whether it's positive or negative, can make a difference. If you're compounding debt, then that can be obviously bad for you, but if you're compounding growth, then that's a big thing. Where you start with not necessarily $2, but 100,000 or 10,000 or something like that, and then over time you get to make those kind of learnings over those first few years that you might not have, and then also you can have that compounding in the long term.
What about personally?
I think the main thing is having time for yourself. Again, like I said before, I'm probably giving more advice to other people rather than myself. So I've started at the start of every year, me and my wife, we block out a day to do a kind of a vision board for the year, and what her favorite thing is planning the holidays for the year. My favorite thing is looking at the finances for the year. We do other things that day is also plan extracurricular activities for the boys. So they're going to go to soccer, they're going to go to gymnastics, they're going to do swimming, and kind of how much of our time we dedicate towards that. And then, have that kind of plan. Normally takes, about half a day, and it's good to have that kind of bit in the background. And then every month we go out for a date night, which is probably boring for her, but yeah, it's either date night or we go to
special.
Exactly. Or we get together and then go for a run after. But we normally spend two hours a month just to check on how we've gone. Most of the time, I'm very honest, we're over budget because we've spent too much on a holiday or something like that. But if you don't keep a check on it, then you don't know, and you can't. There's a person that I follow on Instagram who does 641, so 6 mini adventures every year. So every second month, you have to try and do a mini adventure. And again, most people in Singapore use public holidays to do that every couple of months just to get out of the country. The 4 is one new habit every quarter. So this quarter, previous quarter, I tried to do the 4 a.m. club or 5 a.m. club.
What is that?
Basically getting up at 5 a.m. every morning.
Sounds horrendous.
That's what I just
I wouldn't say it's a habit yet.
Okay,
I'm working on it still. It's taken 4 or 5 months already. But if you can create 4 new good habits every year, then it's a good way of kind of progressing yourself. And the last one is a lifelong kind of goal or a big ticket item essentially. So 641. This year I've dedicated myself to running a full marathon. So last year was a half marathon. Now I'm going to step it up to a full.
When's the marathon booked in?
3rd of August.
3rd of August.
3rd of August.
In front of my.
Write that down. Exactly. I'm accountable now. I've said it.
As we record the next few months, you're just going to get thinner and thinner.
Exactly. No, but it's a new thing that I've done. I wish I started that earlier. But I think it is very important because then me and my wife are on the same page.
Yeah.
And then we've kind of spoken about what works previously and also what we want to achieve. We also talk about personal goals. So what does she want to achieve personally? What do I want to achieve personally? And then you can have the relationship goals as well in there as well.
It's good that you guys do that. I mean, it's so easy to, if you got it's the other thing, I guess, as a personal thing, when you come up here as a couple, you really need to be on the same path together and be growing together and make sure that you put the work in together as well, right? And that's what I've always really admired about you and Sil as well, because it's very easy to be overwhelmed when you've got 2 young kids and you're both working a lot and traveling, and you guys put the work in. I think we'll have Sil on here soon.
We need Sil on here.
She can tell the other side of the story. It might be completely different.
I guess what we haven't spoken about is Sil is a marketing guru.
Yes,
she's hardworking.
Yes.
When you mentioned the, did you call it a vision board?
Vision board,
board.
It's actually up in our ensuite. I was going to say toilet, but ensuite.
That's a good spot for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's got lots of stuff. It's like there's words and pictures and nice cars and nice houses, nice holiday. Importantly, the Super Bowl's on there, so that's on my bucket list. So really good.
Have you got permission for that?
Not yet. It's not in the plan for this year. Maybe next year. We'll see. Work in progress. Yeah.
No, I think Jamie, it's. Appreciate you being so open and sharing stories, and
Pleasure.
It's not an easy thing to do sometimes, but no, it's like I said, I'm really happy to be doing this with you guys. I'm really excited to shoot more episodes and be able to just share a lot more with our clients and our audience, hopefully an audience that grows.
Exactly. That was exactly. And if people have stories that they want to tell, reach out, let us know. I'm sure we'll do a deeper dive on one of you two in our next episodes.
Yes. And also, if any of our clients are listening and have particular topics that they want us to do a really deep dive on, obviously we talked about repatriation planning a little bit today, but literally we could sit here for a whole hour and a half and really deep dive on that and some of the lessons that our clients have had to learn, good and bad, from that as well. So there's a lot to unpack, but like I said, it's exciting thing to work on with both of you. So for anyone that's listening, we will, obviously this will be listed in all good podcast locations, so please subscribe, do all the usual stuff that people ask for, and we'll talk to you next time.